Experience work interactions in a different and refreshing light. This is the Leader in You podcast, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. We bring the science of attachment and emotional connection with insight from the last 20 years to share how you can overcome conflict issues at work and build strong team relationships, as well as the connected culture.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Leader in You podcast. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Polina, and I co-host this podcast with amazing Dr. Lola Gershfeld, who is the founder of EMC Leaders. We're so excited to be here today, and we're back. Things are finally settling down for me here in California. I'm so excited to be here. Really, really happy for the move. And we have a really exciting show for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about Charlie Kirk. And hold on, even if you have your personal opinion about him and the things that he preached, we're not going to discuss that. What we want to do is take a completely different approach to the situation with Charlie Kirk. But before I get into that, I want to just welcome Dr. Lola Gershfeld.
Hi, Polina. It's so nice to be here with you. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening in, for being part of our community and wanting to learn this amazing, amazing process.
So we are going to be talking about the situation that occurred that, typically our excitement for this podcast is very happy, enthusiastic, and cheerful. But today, we're talking about a situation that has been very, very difficult. And it has affected so many people. I mean, the entire US, actually the entire world, because literally on every social media channel and every news, they're still talking about it. They're talking about, what took place, why it took place. There's different stories of what happened, but we're not actually talking about the information of what exactly happened with Charlie Kirk, but we're taking an entirely different approach. We're taking the EMC process on how to work through your feelings and your emotions of a situation like this, but in the sense of being at work and what it looks like to effectively express yourself when you are dealing with something that's so traumatic and so devastating. Or on the opposite side, if you were not impacted in a negative way about Charlie Kirk and maybe you are feeling like, this is maybe relieving for you, or you have your own personal opinion about it that is opposite than what a lot of people are experiencing, then we're going to just show you how to process those emotions in an effective way and express them. Of course, we go to work every single day for the most part, Monday through Friday. So when we do have something that's so impactful in our lives and really impacts the entire country along with the entire world, it affects us on every part of our life, at our work and our personal life. And it's also like part of the conversations that occur. So before we get into really understanding and talking about, the exact what we do with those feelings that we're feeling when we experience something so traumatic, we're going to go through restructuring and this restructuring process that is a really effective way in expressing yourself.
Polina, I think this topic is so important because this is exactly why the assassination took place, is because people don't know how to deal with their emotions. So they build up, they feel isolated and alone. They don't think that the other person understands them. They start to feel not important, not valued, not matter to the other. And they start to see that the other person is the enemy. This is why it happened. So it's really important that people recognize how to de-escalate. That's stage one. That is very, very important. De-escalate the stressful situation, how to then restructure the conversation, and how to integrate emotional connection into their relationship, into the environment where people can feel safe, heard, valued, and mattered. This is what we're looking for. So when people come to work, they are part of this community. They are part of the team. They're part of the company, and they need to feel safe to express whatever happening for them. We want to be able for people to share the either devastation or whatever. But the most important thing is to recognize that people have to feel safe to express what is happening for them. You might not agree, right, to each side, but the stage one of the EMC process is to help people to create that safety for people to share their triggers, the raw spots, emotions, and then what they do to respond when they get triggered.
I think I want to add too. So, it was really interesting to witness the reactions and responses from people all over the US. And because social media is such, we have a very freedom of speech now on the platforms, where I feel like before President Trump came into office, there was so much more, I would say like things that were not allowed,
Like
to be
censorship.
said.
Yes,
Yeah, there were a lot
censorship.
of censorship, exactly. But now, since Trump has been in office, there's been a lot more freedom of speech. So we saw like both sides of people who were happily rejoicing over what happened with Charlie Kirk. And there was also, the side of people that were very, very devastated with what happened with Charlie Kirk. And the reason why I bring that up is because even the reactions and responses from the people to a traumatic experience can also trigger other people in that experience, right? So to bring it back to what we were talking about before we started recording this podcast, we mentioned like the importance of core values in a company, right? If the company's core values are not like aligned with, I don't know if I would even say basic, like no killing, right? We mentioned like we have to kind of take it back all the way to the basics of, I think for the most part, companies are aligned with those core values, right?
Yeah, human rights. I mean,
Authenticity, integrity,
right.
respect or communication.
The whole premise for the core values is that we feel safe, like our company is we are aligned with company values in terms of there's no harm needs to be done, people can
Yeah,
express their opinion, and we also have a common goal, right? Our common goal is our company, our projects, to be successful, to continue to serve our clients or patients or customers. So
absolutely.
definitely when
Yeah,
people are rejoicing about the killing, that is already a violation of core values. And that
right.
that is very, very difficult for us to deal with.
Yeah. So the reason why I brought that up is because, this is something that we have to bring to light before we take the EMC process and start restructuring and reframing the way that we communicate and express ourselves. We have to really understand and truly understand that the value system the core values of like not with no intent to harm people in that sort of very violent and traumatic way is like not accepted, right? It's
Right.
not accepted as like it being okay to do something that way. If you
Exactly.
work in a company that feels like the rejoicing of an assassination like that is part of what, everyone is thinking this is a value that they do hold in the company, which I haven't heard of, but I'm seeing it with people, on social media, then it's very difficult to take the EMC process and use the restructuring and reframing and de-escalating and apply it to the communication ways, and how to connect and express yourself effectively.
Well, that is correct because the premise of using the EMC process is that people are aligned with core values. They hold a common goal. And then the only thing that is really struggling for them is how they communicate with each other, right? How they trigger each other. But they do have a common goal, and common goal is not to harm each other.
Okay, good. So now that we have that established, which is what I think that was really important to understand, don't necessarily align, with the common goal of the company. I see that too sometimes. I mean, you see it in relationships also outside of the workplace, but when you don't have like aligned values, then it could be even more difficult to work at the company, or people tend to leave a company where they don't feel like they have aligned values. Then
Exactly.
it's very difficult to implement a process like this if you're not aligned in that way. So now that we have that established, saying that you have commonly aligned goals and values in the company that you work with, then we can move on to teaching you how to restructure and de-escalate and reframe your feelings and how you express yourself to create this effective way of communicating and feeling also valued, heard, and understood in times that are really difficult and traumatic, not just in your own life, but this like bigger picture of this worldly problem that has occurred.
We also want to be able to create safe space for people to express what happened for them, because this is very traumatic what happened, and for people to not be able to speak, especially with people they depend on, they want to be able to reach for each other. They have this longing for connection. And in moments like this, in moments of vulnerability where we feel vulnerable, we feel fear, we feel stress, we feel sorrow, we feel sadness, we feel surprise, we need to be able to know that the people who are with us, who we depend on, will be there for us. This is a part of the bonding experience. This is a part of that emotional connection experience.
So for those of you who are listening, if you are a CEO or if you are a leader in your company, if you have a, upper management position, or if you have employees that you manage and take care of that you notice that they are wanting to share and express their feelings about what happened with Charlie Kirk, then this is the podcast you want to listen to. And we're going to go through a few steps here with this specific process. So if you're listening on the podcast and you have a moment to jump over to our YouTube video, we're going to demonstrate the process in a visual way right now. So Dr. Lola is going to go ahead and share the 3 stages. And this you can take a screenshot of while you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening to podcasts, save this episode and then come back to the YouTube channel so you can watch it here and see the 3 stages. So we're going to go over the 3 stages that is actually going to help you create this safe enough environment for your employees or your colleagues to express themselves during a very traumatic experience such as the Charlie Kirk assassination. So in general, the EMC process consists of these 3 stages and these 9 different steps. So once you understand and have these stages and 9 steps down, then you can apply it to any situation that's difficult. All right, so let's talk about stage 1, de-escalate. So de-escalate is when you're able to create a safe environment, enough of an environment to help the colleague or the person that is really struggling, to help them. It's like lowering, it's like the magic touch to lowering someone's cortisol levels. And not only are you able to help them in lowering and de-escalating the emotions, because emotions are so big and emotions can go very fast. So you can use these 4 steps in stage 1 to help lower their cortisol levels, regulate their emotions, and calm the nervous system down so that it's safer for them to express themselves. But the only way that we can actually do that for someone else is that if we know how to do that for ourselves as well. So the very first step is create a safe environment and alliance. Well, the way that we do that is to clearly identify and say out loud that what is happening is called a negative cycle. You're removing the blame, like you're taking all the blame that you would think, we typically put on people in a conflict, like, oh my gosh, like let's say we take the Charlie Kirk assassination as an example. Well, it was his fault. Like it was that person's fault. It was, of course you're going to feel upset because, oh my gosh, like that's how so the blaming words, the blaming, the shaming, the ways that we say defending, when we're putting that on someone or are we pointing fingers? That doesn't create a safe environment. Let's say someone does feel a different way about how the assassination took place than the other person. We can help de-escalate those feelings so that they could still have a conversation and still be connected, even if they may have a different perspective on the situation that occurs. So we want to create a safe environment and alliance. So if you want to take that into action, that would look like saying, like, very first thing is, I hear, thank you for sharing, and I hear that this situation is very difficult. It's also been very difficult for me. That's something that I do a lot with my team. It's like creating that relatable experience makes them feel safe enough to share what's going on with them without being judged or criticized for what they want to share. I can see that it's like really impacted you. This is like a negative cycle. It's no one's fault, right? So I do want to clarify, though, it's not that we're saying like the guy who assassinated Charlie Kirk, it's not his fault. We're not saying that it's like, you know, it's okay for him to do what he did. We're not like justifying the situation. What we want to do is identify the person that their difficulty that with their experiencing that situation, that they don't feel blamed or shamed, or you as a person that's creating the safe environment isn't blamed or shamed as well.
I love what you're saying, that you're really tuning in into the emotions, right? You're saying, I hear you. That must be very difficult. It's difficult for me. It's very, very painful what's happening. So you're really addressing the emotions, right? Right from the start. And you're taking the content out of the equation, because if you are staying in the process, in the emotional process, then you are starting to tune into that emotional channel where people start to feel like you're with them. The reason why we want to create that safe environment and alliance with people is for them to know they're not alone in this experience. They're not alone in this traumatic, whatever, from whatever side you come from, this was traumatic event. By sharing, I hear you, that must be very difficult. You're not agreeing with the content, but you are agreeing with their experience.
Exactly. That's step one in stage one. Step two is to clarify triggers, raw spots, and emotions. So if you haven't yet gotten our forms, the EMC forms that are really effective in dealing with conflicts, restructuring how you're communicating, changing the cycles, and reconnecting after a conflict, there are three areas in step one: clarifying triggers, raw spots, and emotions. And of course, you can get all of this detailed information in our EMC course, which will be in much more depth of each of these steps and the stages. So a trigger, for example, just give one example, could be
you come to work, you start sharing, oh my God, did you hear what happened? And the other person turns away from you. They don't want to talk about it. Maybe they are not looking at you. That could be a trigger. The other person is ignoring you, is ignoring what you're saying. And that just rejection of them turning away or not looking at you can trigger you in a very vulnerable way.
So that's an example of one trigger, which is actually the raw spot. You can be triggered by them turning away, and then the raw spot is that that you're feeling rejected or not included. And the third part to step two is emotions. So just identifying which emotions you're feeling. I also want to add that when something like this occurs, if we just take a look at this like on a global, right? Because it's not just, you can be sensitive to a situation that's occurring to your personal life, but maybe other people don't know about. So you are sensitive and have a heightened state of sensitivity. But like on a global level, you know, like the entire country knew about it, the entire world's talking about it. Now you have like even more heightened sensitivity. It was kind of like when I was living in Maui and the fires took place, you know, it was very, very traumatic, but then like everybody was traumatized. So now everyone has this heightened sensitivity. When you have a traumatic experience that happens like only in your personal life, maybe someone else in your work doesn't have that heightened sensitivity. But when you're dealing with an issue like this that occurs like on a massive scale and it impacts many, many people, then everybody has this heightened sensitivity already around this topic, okay, and around what's going on in general in their life.
I want to add that some people might even shut down their emotion. They might say, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to work. And that could be very difficult for other people to deal with. Like, how is it possible you don't have any emotions about this, what's happening? Don't you care? Don't you, isn't that important? You see, you're getting triggered and you're responding, you're attacking, you're already getting to that negative cycle.
So identifying the emotions, and you can find the emotions list in the documents that are provided to you when you take the EMC course. We talked about this form before, so we have some videos about explaining this form as well. So you want to be specific with your emotions. That's important too. There's 3 different levels of emotions, and I'm not going to get into it now, but just to get an idea, you want to be able to identify the emotions that are on all 3 levels, not just sad, mad, angry, like the basic emotions we learn in preschool. We want the deeper emotions that we feel disappointed, betrayed, it could be dismissed, whatever those emotions are, we want to be able to identify them and clearly express them.
Step 3 is automatic thoughts and protective behaviors. These are the meaning that we make. When we see the other person is doing something that is triggering us, we start to make meaning out of it. And these automatic thoughts often are ways for us to protect ourselves. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to get away because I don't feel like I'm connecting to this person, or I feel rejected, I feel not valued. How dare they? And you start now fighting. And for protective behaviors, it could be you start to defend yourself or blame, judge, attack, or withdraw and shut down.
And then step 4 is raise awareness of the negative cycle as an enemy. So it's kind of going back to solidifying step 1, which is creating a safe environment and alliance. When we understand that, let's say you do want to express your feelings about what happened with Charlie Kirk's assassination, and then you do turn to your colleague and the colleague turns away from you, you want to change the perspective and understand that it's really the negative cycle. We put the blame on the negative cycle. So it's like the negative cycle is causing you to feel rejected, as opposed to the person who's turning away from you that's, making you feel rejected. Solidifying step 1.
When you recognize yourself, we are in a negative cycle, you have graduated stage 1. It's like you recognize that every person is responding and reacting because of their emotions, because of their triggers and raw spots.
Stage 2 is called restructuring. When we talk about stage 1, de-escalating, it's important to de-escalate before we restructure. And as we went through all the first 4 steps in the de-escalating stage, you can apply those same steps to what you're experiencing. So when you clarify your own triggers, raw spots, emotions, you can identify your own automatic thoughts and protective behaviors. You're actually raising awareness on what your patterns are. And when you raise awareness on what your patterns are, that's the first step to being able to make the change in the patterns and the change in the cycle. So it's not affecting you in a negative way, but you also have a lot more empathy for your colleagues and the people that you work with, because you understand that they are probably experiencing those painful patterns as well.
The whole thing in stage 2, what we're doing is we're helping each side to be ARE, accessible, responsive, and engaged. And because they're coming from a place of vulnerability where they can share triggers, raw spots, emotions, their automatic thoughts, protective behaviors, and now in step 5, as Polina shared, they can identify their needs to feel safe and connected. Each person is learning how to validate, how to share, how to accept, and how to reassure each other in creating emotional safety and connection.
So step 5 is identifying the needs to create a positive cycle, which is also listed in our form. And then, so an example of defining what the safety need is it could be reassurance, it could be acknowledgement, it could be reassurance that someone is important, you're important to them. So those are all listed, and you have options to choose from those. Sometimes we come into a situation with a conflict amongst coworkers where people say, I don't need something. But one of the things that we say is everybody needs an emotional, to be emotionally connected, we need those emotional needs met. And so it's important to, if you do find yourself feeling like you don't know, I would say just pick one of those emotional needs and then see how it lands on you. How does it feel to say, I need reassurance, or how does it feel to receive that reassurance, even if you feel like you don't necessarily need it? If you're not used to getting your emotional needs met, that's another, it could be very surprising to you. It could be very different, very unique. It could be feel different for you. And that's something to become aware of as well, is how does the emotional responsiveness to those needs feel for you? So when you do ask for what you need, or you are able to provide emotional need to somebody else, then it allows that individual and for you to remain accessible, responsive, and engaged, which is what we need to restructure and change that pattern. So that's step 6. And then step 7, we're facilitating bonding moments to repair relationship injuries. So if you do have a situation and we go back to step 2 and you've clarified your triggers, raw spots, and emotions, then we want to restructure and reframe how to communicate those triggers, raw spots, emotions in what we like to call a bonding moment. So it's like, for example, when you go to work out at the gym and you don't exactly know how to use the gym equipment. So maybe you connect with a personal trainer, the personal trainer goes through every single equipment and then gives you 4 different workouts to do. And so you're going to go through each of the workout machines and he's going to explain how to use them. And then you go back on your own and you are using each of the machines in that workout. So it's similar to what we're doing here. We are explaining, we're expressing, identifying, clarifying, understanding our thoughts and protective behaviors in all these steps. And then by the time we get to step 7, we're going to go back and we're going to share it in a bonding conversation, just as we would have a conversation in order to repair that injury and that trigger that occurred. So then you're actually putting what you said into place into a conversation.
What I like about this process, Polina, is it allows the withdrawer and pursuer, as we know, is in stage 2, you actually help the withdrawer to re-engage. You create safety for them. You create safety for them to be on that dance floor, or to use that equipment, to use exercise equipment. You are inviting them back to this exercise. And you are softening the pursuer. So the pursuers don't come across as aggressive as before. Because in a negative cycle, when the cycle takes over the relationship, both parties are extra vigilant for threats. So the pursuer becomes extra aggressive and withdrawer becomes extra avoidant. So when we restructure the cycle, both sides, they feel safer and they are able to stand in the conversation and be engaged.
And then stage 3 is to integrate. So it's really just to continue to reinforce safety and emotional connection, and then to continue to have these kinds of bonding conversations on a daily basis.
Right. In this particular stage, I love what you said. It's really reinforcing. This is a key,
Yeah.
right? The word is reinforced connection. We long for connection with people we depend on, we work with, and we need to nurture that connection with habitual rituals, with reassurance that we matter, we care about. And when people know this process and have the language, it's kind of easy, because the whole repair process takes very quick, because you already know everybody has triggers, everybody has raw spots, emotions. They go to automatic thoughts. You feel a lot more empathic to people who use protective behaviors. You understand it's the negative cycle, it's nobody's bad guy, and you learn how to be accessible, responsive, and engaged. It's ARE. Are you there for me? Is a $1 million question in attachment relationship. And then you create this bonding conversation where you actually repair the connection. And guess what? By reinforcing the safety and emotional connection, you continue to deepen your bond, to strengthen your relationship, and everything becomes easier to do.
So these are the 9 steps and the 3 stages. And I love this. I think that the entire situation, is very difficult for everyone to really digest and process and, just continue on in their life. So I think that's what we really want, is to make sure that we're not avoiding the feelings, that we're not pushing them down, that we're not like putting them away for another time, because that time typically never happens. And I hear, like we've said this before, time doesn't heal, although you probably hear that a lot. Just time, give it time, it's going to heal. No, it just settles into your organs, and then you have health issues. So we don't want that to occur. We want to make sure that you have a process that will help you express yourself in a way that you feel validated, heard, understood, important. And so you can still stay connected in the company and engaged without these situations affecting you where you become disengaged, depressed, and withdrawn. So thank you guys so much for listening. We're so excited to be here. I do want to add that we're going to be speaking at OrgDev this October, the 20th, the 19th, 20th, and the 21st. What are the dates?
Yes, October 21st at the ATD OrgDev Conference
Yes,
in Houston, Texas. Yes.
So you guys can join us there. We'll definitely be doing our podcast as well, like we did at the other ATD conference. And we're so excited.
Yes, thank you. We're going to be having 2 sessions. The first one is the panel discussion, from conflict to connection, and the second one is navigating difficult conversations in the afternoon. And I'll be teaching that with you, Polina. So excited to be there.
Yes, thank you so much. And it was so nice to do this podcast with you, Mom. Thank you for those of you who are listening. We love you, appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a joy to share these podcasts with you. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and subscribe to join us at our next podcast of The Leader in You, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. Until then, be well and be focused on your relationships. We'll see you soon.